Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. This is Laura Smith on Blog Talk Radio. It is 6 o'clock here in the morning, Monday morning, January the 9th. I'm glad to be here. This is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another, and we're on for 30 minutes. It's a live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com. And chat room's open. I did pop a couple of links in there to what we're looking at last week, and just wanted to kind of go back and take a look at some of those the PDFs that I'm looking at. This is my healing journey here in the morning, and it's not for children, not for younger children. My shows are all dealing with abuse, the topics of abuse, very sensitive material. So if you're not sure that topics like abuse or anything related to it might bother you, you need to listen at your own discretion and be careful of what you're listening to. If you're a survivor just starting out in your healing journey, and you haven't done a whole lot of work in your healing journey yet, you want to be careful what you're listening to, because this type of material can trigger people. So and all of my shows, you have to listen at your own discretion, because I'm talking about abuse, and abuse tends to it can bother some people, and it can really trigger a lot of people. So be very careful what you're listening to. If you feel like it might bother you, just turn it off or just don't listen, right? And young people 18 and under, I just ask that you have permission to listen to my shows, because I'm talking about abuse and very, very much adult-oriented material. As much as it's all about stopping abuse and stopping child abuse, there's a lot of adult content on my shows. So I would ask that anybody 18 and under have an adult listen to shows with you. That way they can help you make a decision whether you should be listening to my shows, whether it's age-appropriate and whatnot, right? So thanks, everybody. We'll get right into this. I stayed up way too late last night, didn't get very much sleep, so I'm running on about 4 hours snooze, but that's all right. I'm used to going on 5, but 4 is a little bit short. And so hopefully you can hear what I'm saying, and I'm not mumbling too much. And I'm just getting over a cold as well, so I'll try to hear. But thanks for being here. I appreciate it. I've done about, almost 890 shows. I'm working on 900 shows here on Blog Talk Radio, and that's a lot of talking. I appreciate everybody who's been tuning in to my shows. Thanks very much for taking the time to do that. I've got some friends who listen on a regular basis, Kate and Chris and some other people that I know that tune in on a regular basis, and I appreciate it. And I spending this time with me. This is my healing journey, like I said, and I've come a long, long way in 5 years. I started my healing journey, and just really I kind of attribute it to this one night when I was sitting on the couch, actually one afternoon, one evening, of just being so down and so depressed and so, looking back at my life and just thinking, oh my God, is this all there is to it? Am I just going to have to continue suffering on? And I was just in so much pain, and that's the day I actually decided to get help, and that's it's been 5 years coming up in March. It was right around the end of March when that happened. And so I contribute my healing journey to May 22nd, 2007, and that's when I really allowed myself to open up to love and to the good things in life, to love and compassion. And because I always thought that I was a good person, that I cared about people and whatnot, but I didn't have a heart full of love. I had a heart full of rage and anger, and a heart full of, a lot of emotional problems, just dealing with the abuse that I was suffering. And so, as much as I liked other people and had built some relationships, I really had no real room for love in my heart, because it was so full of all this other stuff. And so May 22nd, 2007 is when I really opened up my heart, and I had a spiritual experience that was just amazing. So, I'm very happy about it. I'm not looking back. It's been 5 years. It's been a hard, long 5 years. I was dealing with this stuff and looking at it and talking about it and going through it and allowing myself to feel it. Some of the stuff I repressed, and I actually, it's not that I was in denial or was not willing to admit that I'd been abused sexually, but the issue is that it was just, it was from when I was 8 years old, and I, at the time, was dealing with being abused already, physically, emotionally, psychologically, parents, and so I couldn't deal with that on top of all that other stuff. My mind was just not able to cope with the child sexual abuse, because I was already being abused, and there was no help for me. I told my mother that what was going on, and she wasn't going to help me. My mother was my main abuser. So my brain in order for me to survive, my brain just found a real easy way to deal with it, and that was just to close the door on it and not think about it. And so I haven't really gotten in touch with a lot of the feelings that are associated that should be coming through me from being sexually abused as a child. A person. I mean, that was a serious. That was a serious affront and assault on an 8-year-old girl. And that should bother me. That should have bothered me. And even as an adult, I mean, it bothers me because I know what happened to myself, and that makes me angry, more anger than anything. But I mean, there's all kinds of emotions that are associated with that I really repressed, and so what I'm trying to do is allow myself to work through this stuff, right? So I'm still through parts of my healing journey, but I feel I'm on the last leg of my healing journey because I feel so much better. I can see the areas that I worked in and did a lot of work in, and I feel a lot better in those areas. And so there's a few pieces left, and that's what I'm working on now. But really allowing myself to, because I'm a Christian, so this is where this part of my healing journey this is really where it's all at, as far as getting my heart right. Because I didn't want to be the way that I was before. I wanted change. And that's what happens when people usually go to counseling, or they'll go seek therapy, or they'll go seek group support, or whatever it is. It's because they want change. They want something to change in their life. They want to feel different. They want to feel better, for whatever reason. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to necessarily be about abuse. For me, that's mainly what it was. But lots of times people are just, having things going on in their life that they need support in, they need help in, because obviously they're struggling. And this is where, I realize and understand, this is the part of me that understands this stuff. You know what I mean? Because I'm actually studying to be a counselor. Right? But the issue, I understand that. But then on a personal level myself, I'm having to deal with it too. So, this is why, people seek counseling or whatever, or biblical counseling. And for me, it's Christian counseling, biblical counseling, because that's what makes sense to me. Because I understand evil and I understand good. So I understand, for me, it's not just black and white. It's not just, that's just how human nature is, and will never change. Like, for me, it's ridiculous to think that. Like, my belief system doesn't agree with that. I believe that we can change, and I believe that it's a choice, that abuse is a choice. I don't believe it's something that people do just because they're predisposed to it or whatever. I think it's a choice. People decide, that how they're going to treat the people around them, whether it's their family, whether it's their children, or whoever's in their life. Could be a boss, employee situation. Abusive people choose to do what they're doing. It's an issue at the heart, what's going on in their hearts. I don't know how anybody could just do these things and think it's okay, but they do. And the sad thing is that almost all abusers, there's only, a percentage, if you study it out, the studies that they do from mainly from psychotherapy and therapists and whatnot, and counselors who get together and format these and formulate results from surveys and whatnot, from intake information and whatnot about people who have been or are admitted to being abusers and actually have gone for help. How many of them actually take responsibility for it? Not that many. Abusive people don't want to take responsibility. They blame everybody else. So this is where, I know it's an issue at the heart. That's totally what it is. It's like there's got to be something going on, something wrong with that person's heart, because how could you do these things to somebody and think that it's okay and justify it in your own mind? People do. They will hurt and kill and maim and abuse, and they think it's fine. They think that, they didn't do anything wrong. Well, my dad is like that. My dad it's not like he's this horrible person. He has friends. He's always been able to make friends. He doesn't make very long-lasting relationships, but he's had a few where people, know about his past and don't know what kind of a dad he was, what kind of a father he was, what kind of a husband he was. People don't know that. They think he's just this wonderful old guy. And, he comes across as this wonderful old guy. He knows how to be a good person. But when he was around his wife and his children, he couldn't do that. I mean, he would go to work and treat people with respect and dignity, and he loved those people, and that's great. Then he would come home and he would try to destroy his family. And it's like, okay, this guy's living two different lives. And that's exactly what he was doing. Outside, he was fine. Inside the home, he was a monster. And my mother was the same way. Like, she was fine on the outside. She had friends. She had people that liked her, that loved her, and called her mom, of all things. I used to get pissed off because I'd be like, my mom would be showing so much love towards other people's children, so much love towards other people, And people would call her mom because she was such a good person to them. And then she would beat the shit out of me and bash my head in and try to kill me and kick me around and call me a whore and a slut and let my brother sexually use me and stuff throughout the years, right? And, and here on the outside, people just loved her. And so, of course, this anger and this rage built up within inside of me because I was like, look at these two bastards, you know what I mean? Like, how can they do this? Look what they're doing. They are screwing their family. They are totally screwing up their whole entire family, their children and themselves. They're a miserable, rotten mess. And on the outside, everybody just loves them. They're just great. And they knew that they had marital problems. It's not like people didn't know that their closest people that hung around with them didn't know that they didn't have marital problems. But that was no problem. Lots of people have marital problems. They did not realize the depth and the scope of the magnitude of the horror that our parents inflicted on each other and us. So this is the stuff that just ate away at me and ate at me and ate at me. You know what I mean? Because part of me, I was doing the same thing because I was brought up to do it. It's like, there'd be a huge family fight. My parents would have been fighting all morning, fighting all day, like on a Saturday, let's say. But let's say we got invited to a barbecue that night or somebody's house for dinner for Saturday night. And I remember being about, 11 years old, and maybe even sometimes younger than that. My parents were fighting all the time, so this was just normal. And there'd be a big fight going on. And then my mom, of course, her temper would be just at its wit's end, so she would be just pissed off. And if something happened that caused her to feel that I was being bad, or I was, maybe I was being a little bit, I was a kid, I was just a small child, that I needed discipline, it would turn into abuse. She would beat the shit out of me and call me names and scream at me, kick me around, and then tell me to put a smile on my face. And then if I didn't put a smile on my face, she would kill me because we were going to that barbecue and that's all there was to it. And that I was going to behave myself and put a smile on my face after listening to them calling each other whores and all these horrible names, and listening to them fighting and breaking dishes and throwing things and beating on each other, and then having them beat on me and my dad, cursing my brothers, and then show up at this barbecue at 5 o'clock in the afternoon or 4 in the afternoon, and look like we've got it all together. And that's what we did. And that's what I did my whole life. And that's why I do what I do. I can go to work. I can get dressed in the morning. I can put my makeup on. I can do what I need to do, get to work, whatever way it is. If I have a car, I drive. If I don't have a car, I take the bus. And I can show up. No problem. But after that, what's left with my time and with me is the real stuff. And so that's a hard place for people to be. It's an extremely hard place for people to live, and I've been living there my whole life. Until I started to get help, until I started to realize, wow, I'm just going to self-destruct. I've been on a self-destructing lifestyle my whole life, and I didn't want to kill myself. Part of me did. Part of me does. Part of me did, because that part of me is so tired, just really tired of dealing with garbage and crap, and just wants peace and rest, But then there's another part of me that says, no, we have to do this. We have to stay alive, and we have to fight this thing, and we have to try to help other people. That's the other part of me that drives me to do what I'm doing. And I'm like, well, I only got so much time left on the planet. I've done a lot of things. It's not really necessarily about, about me. I want to help other people. So that's why I'm getting into biblical counseling. But what I find interesting is that this biblical counseling course that's found on these two links, www.immanuals, IMMANUALS, immanuals.org. And then there's also another one, www.freechristiancounselingtraining.com. That's all one word, www.freechristiancounselingtraining.com. They have some great info on there. It's courses for people who are interested in becoming biblical counselors. And this is the reason why people would go to a counselor, is because they've got issues. They've got something that's bothering them. Maybe they want change in their life. Maybe they need to change. Maybe they just need help. You know what I mean? Nobody really wants to go to a counselor unless they need something. So the issue is this is what I'm dealing with, and also in my own life dealing with, but also this is what I study. And so I find the most interesting because of what I'm doing. Right? And there's a BCM course on the immanuals.org, and it's a church website, but they have a course there on it's to help people out, to heal and it's to help show counselors what to look for as well to help people out. And so there's a PDF on there, part of the BCM course that you download if you want to download it. It's a zip file, and they're talking about this whole issue. They said the issue in this course is the self, stolen by the devil. Of course, if you believe that, if you're a Christian. If you're not a Christian, you could say, well, the world just ripped your soul off. You know what I mean? Like, you just had so much stuff happen to you that you're just soul murdered. And as a Christian, I believe that it's Satan, and that truly man's fall. Really, they decided to serve the devil, right? Well, I was brought up a Christian, even though we didn't go to church together. It was just my dad was a Christian, and we grew up in a Western culture in a Christian area. So, I'm just was naturally prone to be a Christian. But I'm a Christian because I'm supposed to be a Christian, and I believe that. It's what I believe in, what I feel like I know and understand, and it makes sense to me, and it connects, and it works with me. You know what I mean? But it may not work for somebody else. I never, I'll sit there and try to cram my belief system down somebody's throat. It's like we all have our own belief systems. You know what I mean? I know actually lots of Muslims and Hindus and everybody else. And it's great, you know what I mean? Like, whatever brings in peace and happiness, that's fine. This is what works for me. And so it says that self belongs to God, and to bring that self back to God, the self, human nature, which is what they're calling human nature, is the intellect, memory, and the will. So it's the mind, it's the mind, the emotions, and the will, which is our actual will, what we will do. Right? And then they said that the focal point is the mind. So that our mind, our life is molded by life's experiences. This is what people say. And then, there's a whole lot of psychologists and people that study psychotherapy that agree and say that our life is really all about our experiences and what happened to us, and we're just reacting to these experiences. And then they say that our lives have been impacted by what has been done to us. Well, obviously. My God, you can't beat a child senseless and bloody, call them names, make them feel like they're worse than nothing. They're not even a piece of shit. They're worse than a piece of shit. And that they should have died when they were a baby. You can't do that to a child over and over and over again without expecting that child to grow up with some serious problems. Because my ego defenses obviously were damaged. You know what I mean? My ego, my sense of who I am, my sense of whether or not I actually do belong, whether I should have just died and gone to hell. You know what I mean? Like, this is what I was told to do. So, in my mind, my little small child mind, it just was assaulted on every level. You know what I mean? So, and people think that that's not going to damage a person. It's like, come on, how about, we'll just do that to you for about 10, 15 years and see how you like it. For somebody out there who thinks that wouldn't damage a child, sure it does. And they said that, what was done to us, in turn, what we have done to others. Some of us have come from dysfunctional families, they said here, of various sorts and degrees, alcoholic parents, or constant bickering between parents, over-disciplined or under-disciplined households, no love or acceptance and approval demonstrated, sexual abuse by a parent, brother, relative, neighbor. Maybe you were adopted or parents died at a young age. Perhaps you were verbally and sexually abused in a foster home. So this list goes on and on. Obviously, right? So thus the result is that we are scarred and damaged in our mind, will, and emotions. The three areas, right? The mind, will, and emotions. And in our bodies too, right? If you've been sexually abused, physically abused in any way, your body's going to be damaged too, neglected, right? So they said, left on our own to protect and defend ourselves against the onslaughts of life, we interpret life based on what life has done to us, right? From a disease perspective, or attitudes, right? They say here are faulty memories, which is bullshit. There's so many people out there that like to minimize abuse and, was it really that bad? And did it really happen? It's like, well, let me describe it to you. I would like to make a movie of my childhood and show the world one person's set of abuse, you know what I mean? Because I want people to know. That's why I went public with my stuff. I want people to know what happened to my brothers. I want people to know what happened to me, I want people to know what happened to all of my siblings and my mom. But I also want people to know what my mother did. You know what I mean? Because my mother was my main abuser and hurt me severely. And this way people can see the level of psychotic behavior that was going on and what can happen in a family where people will be fine when the social workers are around, but when the social workers leave and go home, it all starts again. And, they're fine at work, well, sort of, but they don't abuse other people, just their own family. But when they come home, it's a different story, and that's what I want people to know this stuff, that abusers are very manipulative. And of course they're not gonna just beat up on everybody at work. That's not generally the case. Abusers aren't necessarily going to abuse everybody around them. Some do, and then you can tell that that's just an abusive type person, and you have to really watch them and wonder what they're doing to their kids and their family and their partners. But most people aren't show up to work with a smile on their face. Then they go home and they kick the shit out of their wife or their children, or the wife goes home and kicks the crap out of her husband and her children, right? Then they show up back to work the next day and they're happy, right? This is this psychotic, situation that so many people have had to live through, or still sexually use their children and then show up to work. I don't know how anybody could do that. It just boggles my mind. I may have to counsel some of these people. I'm going to be a counselor, right? So, I'm looking at this stuff from a counselor's perspective too, not just my own. But I was, being sexually abused. I sit there and I'm thinking, how can you do that to a child, knowing that, what it's done to that child and what it will do to that child? How can you do that and then go to work and then continue to do your thing? It's a psychotic issue. If there's something seriously wrong with a person who would do that. Yeah, it can't be some. There is no excuse for that. There's no justification. There's no reason. There's no reason in the world to do that to a child, and yet people are doing it all over the place. 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 4 boys, pretty stats everywhere, would be sexually abused in some way under the age of 18, and a lot of times it's by other, children or adolescents, but not always. Sometimes it's mom and dad. Sometimes it's grandma and grandpa. Sometimes it's aunt and uncle. Sometimes it's somebody else, right? Sometimes it's brother, sister, right? And the issue is like, this is really sick and twisted. That people think this is okay because it's really not. And but yeah, this is the stuff that the world says, well, you should be able to just get over it. Or here, we'll just prescribe you some drugs, and you can just get over it. And do drugs. And I'm not saying that all medication is just not needed. There's probably times when it is needed. I'm sure there is. But the thing is just to make that the answer. It's like, no, I knew that I had to find the answer somewhere within inside of me, and I knew the answers were going to be there, and I knew that the answers had to be there somewhere. And I looked and I looked and I looked and I thought, there's no way I can change my past. And I started to get real with myself 5 years ago, and then especially about 2 years ago when I started talking through this stuff, right? And I thought, there's no way I'll be able to pass. I can't go back and change that. I can't go back and get the love that I needed as a child. There's no way. I can't go back as a child and not be sexually abused. I can't go back and not be physically abused by my mother or my dad. I can't go back and get the love and care and the life that I really deserve to have. So what am I going to do about it? So I was sitting here and I thought about it, and I thought, well, okay, I need to face it, and I need to deal with every aspect of it as it comes along. And it's been hard, and but for me, it's been doable, and that's why I hope to be able to help other people. That's why I want to get a counseling certificate and a degree, right? Because I'm very much interested in helping other people too, and because I know what it's like to be on the other side of that, not wanting to reach out, not wanting to get help, because who do you trust? I have, and I still do have trust issues, and I think you can't trust everybody. Because not everybody's going to look out for you. Not everybody's going to have the best interest for you in their hearts, and that's the truth of it. Very few, right? So, you do have to have some boundaries, and you have to have some checks and balances in your life to say, well, you do have to be careful, and you have to look out for yourself. You know what I mean? You can't trust everybody. You know what I mean? There's just so lots of counselors will say, well, you just need to learn to trust. You just have to trust. It's like, well, you can trust some people, and they have to prove themselves trustworthy, and some people you can't trust because they will hurt you, and that's a fact. And I grew up like that. Not only was I abused at home, but because I was on the streets, I was running into all these psychotic people and nearly kidnapped 5 times, and nearly raped a couple of times, and nearly killed by a drug dealer one time. So I've had all kinds of run-ins with crazy people, and people would say, were they crazy? Absolutely. Anybody who would do these things is absolutely insane. But my family was insane. Yeah, so not only that was I having a huge problem at home, but I was, in a lot of dangerous situations outside of my home as well. And life to me is dangerous. I don't walk down the street in a happy mode thinking, oh, life is great, life is good, woo. I mean, to me, everyone is a potential threat. You know what I mean? Because my life has been so far a potential threat, except for these people in my adult life that I've chosen to hang around with that are decent, that are loving, that are kind, that are good, right? I mean, otherwise I'm not really looking at people like, oh, I'd like to get to know lots of people. It's like, no, I hold myself pretty far back from people until I get to know them because people are sick and twisted. And I've seen some really sick and twisted stuff in my own home. So I know how sick and twisted they really are. And I don't want any more of it, you know what I mean? It's like, no, thanks. I choose who I let into my life very carefully, right? And I don't just think I got to go out and trust everybody and make friends with everybody. Like, you do have to be very, very careful what you do. There are a lot of psychos out there. My parents were two of them. My brothers were three of them. One of my brothers seems to be okay, but he's very antisocial. Doesn't make friends at all. Only has like one friend. But you know what? He's happy, so there you go. And he's not out hurting people, so that's all right. And but my other three brothers, I mean, they didn't do so well. And my sister was very much, if you wanted to just have a drink with her or have a coffee, that's fine. But if you really wanted to get to know her, she wasn't going to let you in at all. And my other sister's pretty well the same way. Unless you want to shop with her, you can do stuff with her. But if you want to really get to know who she is, you can forget it. Whereas I'm a little bit more open, you know what I mean, to saying, okay, come into my world if you want to. I'm going to hold. I have boundaries. But, you're welcome to come in and give me the benefit of the doubt, first of all, and then, to see if I'm trustworthy, and I'll do the same for you. So I'm a little bit more open than the rest of my family as far as that goes, and probably actually one of the most sane people in my family, I'd like to think. But that's just because I'm looking at this stuff in a realistic way, that this is all issues of the heart. And they said that's the result, is that we are scarred and damaged in our mind, will, and emotions, our mind, our will, and our bodies too, left on our own to protect and defend ourselves, right? Life is based on what life has done to us, and we start looking at life, from a certain perspective, obviously, right? And they said here, resulting in a distorted, twisted personality and lifestyle. So this is part of this article. They said we become our own gods by reacting to life via our impulses and instincts. In other words, our feelings-oriented lifestyle. And I think that's because we try to protect ourselves. So that's the whole issue with Christianity is that we really can't protect ourselves, and you can't. You can only do so much to protect yourself. So that is living by feelings, which controls us instead of responding to life as God commands. And God's word tells us to respond to life by our will, which is based on God's word, regardless of how we feel. So unbiblical responses to life fill us with guilt, shame, anger, bitterness, and fear. And I mean, to a certain extent, I understand that, but the other part is from the abuse. You know what I mean? And I like this on this faith therapy website, which is the free Christian Counseling Training.com. It's faith therapy. It's really quite interesting what they have to say about that. As far as growing up abused and being abused as a child, and many children have not dealt with their issues, you know what I mean? And these issues are painful, obviously. And so many times people have issues with forgiveness, you know what I mean, and forgiving themselves, and I know I did. So that's what I want to talk about tomorrow, and I'll sort of go into that a little bit too. But, I was like, why do I need to forgive myself? These people chose to abuse me. So okay, maybe I'm working on forgiveness to try to forgive them, but what do I need to forgive is my part in it. And I never understood that. I used to actually put up a defense against that because I didn't like it. I didn't like to hear that. And they actually go on to explain that we don't have to forgive that part of it because that was not our fault. Abuse is never your fault. It's never our fault that we were abused as children. We don't have to take the blame and the responsibility for that. The only thing we have to take responsibility for now is now. It's today. It's like, what am I gonna do today to get help, or what am I gonna do today to get myself in a better situation? What am I gonna do today to make the choices and the changes that are gonna bring a good life to me, that I can have a good life? That's what we're responsible for. And that's what we need to be very, very much, looking out for our best interests and making sure we're making the right choices for ourselves, right? Have a great day, everybody. We'll talk to you tomorrow. I'll be back on tomorrow, same time, same place. And, if you can't cope and you're having a hard time, you make sure you reach out and get help from somewhere. I don't care where it is. but you make sure you reach out. Do not allow yourself to be destroyed. Do not ever. That's not an option. Don't allow it to be an option. That's what I did. I said, okay, that's no longer an option. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna get help, and that's what I hope everybody else will do. Make the right choice for yourself. Stick around, get some help, and have a good life, because it's such a burden on the abusers. It's like, haha. And I love being on this side of it. I love being able to, because that's my victory. And, I hope everybody else will do the same and stick around and get some help. Have a great day. Talk to you tomorrow.